Hi, and welcome to the Virgin River Cafe Rewatch podcast. Good morning, Gigi.
Good morning, Tracy. How are you today?
I'm great. I'm enjoying the fall weather. It's cool. It's nice. I've got
Mm-hmm.
I made my own coffee today. I've got my homemade coffee, and my husband was so sweet. He bought me some pumpkin spice creamer.
Look at you
So,
and your pumpkin spice husband.
yes. So I've got my fall coffee in the fall weather. How about you?
Well, in celebration of one of my favorite Broadway shows, Wicked,
Mhm.
one of our coffee shops has a drink in representation of them, and it's called the Alphabet Cold Brew. And I decided to go on the wild side. Now, I don't do these drinks very often,
Yes.
uh, because they're
You
way
don't
too
like
sweet.
all the specials and the extras. Yeah,
No,
I know.
no,
You're
no,
a
no.
simple
But
girl when it comes to coffee.
damn right. So I splurged on that. So I bought a small one,
Mhm.
and so yeah, so it's
What do you
called the
think?
Alphabet Cold Brew. It's not bad. It's again way too sweet for me.
Mhm.
Um I think the next time what I may do is if I ever do this again, I may double up on the caffeine, the espresso part.
And
So it
maybe
makes it
half
a little
of the flavor and double the
yeah,
caffeine.
right, exactly.
Yeah,
Half the
that would
flavor.
probably be good for you. You just want a hint of the flavor and the frou
Yeah,
frou, not.
and also the fact that it has peppermint in it and
Mm.
ask
I
them
don't
to
think I can drink peppermint coffee. I mean, I have my limits. I do
it
have
it,
a.
it well it comes with two it comes with a pump of like peppermint syrup, and basically what I told them is I said kind of spritz the peppermint because I don't like peppermint as such. I mean, I don't mind it, but it's not my favorite
For me,
taste
I
as
like
such.
that. There's a peppermint chocolate one that I is okay, but I'm not like coffee and peppermint just don't. I mean, hot
Yeah.
chocolate. I think peppermint hot chocolate. All I'm in for it. I'm
So
here for it. But
yeah.
coffee,
Be-
I don't know.
Yeah, because this is a small, it
You can
gets
deal with it.
one pump.
Yeah,
It's one pump, and I told them even half that pump.
right.
So that way, because I really didn't want a lot of it. I just want a
But you had to
faint.
try it. You had to have the experience.
I, I had to have the experience because it's a cold drink. It's not a hot drink, so
Yay!
that's
Welcome to the
very,
dark side.
yeah, I know. And because it has the cold foam is green,
Yeah,
which
that's
makes
fun.
it an interesting
That's
color.
fun. I'm sure it's pretty.
It's very pretty.
Yeah.
Anyway, so that's what I'm having.
All right. Well, that's
All
good.
right, folks. So here we go.
Let's get started.
Okay. So we're on season 3, episode 4. Take my breath away.
All
Woo.
right. Now, all of these episodes, there's 10 of them for season 3, and they all dropped July 9th, 2021. That's actually my anniversary. Well, the anniversary of my husband and I met.
All
Um
right.
very long time ago. Like
Yes, it was.
32 years ago. Yeah, something like that. 92. Yes, we were just I was out of college and he had one more year left. So we were just little youngins.
Yes.
We were just fresh faced. So July 9th, 2021, they all dropped. And there were 10 episodes, and this is number 4. Yay. Okay, so what it says, the description says Doc and Mel help Christopher and Preacher with a medical emergency. After an angry confrontation, Jack focuses his energy on a romantic gesture.
Oh,
Oh, we get to see the romantic side of Jack. Love his romantic side. He's
yes. He's very good at that.
He's very good at that. And I think we've said it before that he didn't really have a lot of relationships. They don't show him having or talk about him having a lot of relationships. I mean, they speak about obviously Charmaine, duh. But like previous, there's one or two mentioned throughout.
Mm-hmm.
We'll hear about some, but there's no like long term. So I think, he's one of those guys that's maybe secretly like totally a romantic guy, but just doesn't have anybody to like express that to. And he's been holding on to all of these ideas. I don't know. This is, in my humble opinion, he's a hopeless romantic who's been waiting for the opportunity to be a hopeless romantic, and now Mel just gets the benefit of it all. I'm gonna go with that. I'm gonna go with that because that's what I think. I don't know
I
if it's
see.
true or not, but I'm going to go with it because that's what I think. And I think he is just the sweetest. So
Well, okay.
there you go.
Okay.
That's my opinion, and
That's
I'm
your
sticking to it.
story.
That's my
That's
story.
your story, and you're sticking to it.
Yep.
Okay.
That's what I'm
We
going to
can
go with.
we can we can live with that.
All right.
Uh,
So here we are. And usually we start off like jumping to the same scene, but like 2 seconds later. Or
mhm.
we start with fresh in the morning, somebody's brand new day. But this one, it's a little different. We get the night version of Virgin River. It's very dark. It's late at night or very early in the morning before the sun gets up. And you can see the mountains, still beautiful scenery, even in the middle of the night. It's beautiful. And we are in Mel's cabin, and Jack is sound asleep. Now, he's been there, what, one, maybe 2 nights since the fire? I mean, we don't experience a lot of time with this. So it's been 1 or 2 nights, and he's in bed, and he goes to roll over and reach for Mel, who is not there.
Mhm.
Reaching, you like keep your eyes closed, you reach, you expect someone to be there, and so now that a little alarming.
Mhm.
I mean, he normally doesn't have anybody sleeping next to him, so but now that he's somebody supposed to be there, so he looks a little concerned. So he
Yes. Yeah.
gets up, turns on a light. First place everybody always checks is the bathroom.
His bathroom.
Because remember, it's a one-room place, so it's not like he's going to miss her if she's there, If she's in the bathroom, he might not see her, but, you do a quick sweep of the room, and you can tell if she's there or not. Like, she's not sitting on the couch, she's not sitting at the table. He looks at her phone, battery's almost dead, but it's there. So she couldn't have gone far,
Nope.
right? Looking a little perplexed, looking a little worried. Now he's stepping it up. Now he's like, okay, before he was just like leisurely looking around. Now he's like, got to get the pants on, got to get the flashlight, got to find what's going on. I'm worried. What's happening?
Where's my woman?
Where is my woman? Exactly. Like, now he's concerned. Like, okay, her phone is here, but she is not. And that is weird. And we need to go find her. So he goes outside. He starts looking around, check the chairs that they were sitting at, earlier in the evening. Nobody's there. Looking around, looking around. Cars are there. Like both of their cars, not sitting on the front porch. Chairs that are there. Nobody's there. And he looks and he sees her car. It's like, okay, well, she couldn't have gone far. I mean, her car is here. And then he peeks in the window and she's asleep on the back seat. And the look on her face, he opens the door, which the door should be locked, but whatever. And she sits
As
up.
I said,
Hi.
as I said, it's Virgin River. If they don't lock their front doors, you think they'll lock their cars?
Exactly. And she sits up and she's got this perplexed look like you just woke me up. And she's got a perplexed look. She's all bundled up. She's got like a sweatshirt and a blanket and a pillow. And it's like, what are you, Mel? What are you doing? So now it's morning. Like the sun has now risen. And we are now in the morning part of the day. And the two of them are funny. So they're sitting on their little couch and he's bringing coffee. And he's like, it was that bad? And she's like, no. I'm just like a really light sleeper. It's because he was snoring.
And she's lying to him as far as I'm concerned with that.
Oh, I know she's lying to him because I have a snorer. And trust me, yeah, I'm a light sleeper too. Yeah, you can't sleep. Your earplugs, headphones, like there's a lot you can do. Apnea machine, Jack, maybe you should look into that. I'm just saying. I mean, she is a nurse. Maybe she's going to have a conversation with you. You should have like a sleep study. Check and see if you need an apnea machine. I don't know, but we might be a little worried for him. But and he's like, if I was snoring so loudly, why didn't you wake me up? Now, sweet of her, because knowing that he just recently got shot, found out, he's dealing with twins. His house just burnt down. He's got a lot on his plate right now.
Yes, he
And
does.
she's like, you've been a little stressed out and you were such in a deep sleep. I didn't want to disturb you. I mean, she felt bad that she even thought about waking him up. But instead of
Yeah.
waking him up, she just let him sleep and went somewhere else.
Well, that was very nice of her.
And I love how he's like, so instead of waking me up, you go sleep in your car? And she's like, well, I didn't really do a lot of sleeping because, it's not very comfortable to sleep in the car. So
No.
he's such a gentleman. He's like, you know what? I'm gonna go check into the B&B. And she's like, no, it's fine. I can get earplugs. And he's like, I don't want you to feel uncomfortable. I mean, they're both trying to accommodate each other, and
Yeah.
nobody's being accommodated. Like,
Yeah.
nobody's going to be happy in this situation. And he's like,
Yeah.
I don't want to be in your way or make you feel uncomfortable. And she's like, wait, am I making you feel that way? And he was like, no, 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 no. You're not. That's the whole thing. She's doing like everything possible to welcome him into this situation. And he just feels really bad that he's like, that this is happening.
Right.
And then it comes out why he feels so strangely about this. He's like, no, 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 it's just me. And she's like, what? And then the confession that he's never lived with anyone, and she has. I mean, she was married for 5-6 years, whatever. So she's lived with someone, like in the same space, sharing things, sharing bathroom, everything, sleeping next to someone, whether they snore or not, he has no experience with that.
Yeah.
So
that we are aware of, let's say that.
Well, and that's what, I mean, he said it. He said, I've never lived with anyone. Now, in the Army, they sleep in barracks, but that's, clearly that's a little different, you think? So she is like, it's fine. She understands where he's coming from. And so her way of making him feel better about it, she's like, what can I do to convince you that I want you here? As she scoots closer to him. I mean, she wants him there, and she's trying to make him comfortable. And he's trying not to impose on her. And he doesn't know what to do. I mean, this is a very odd situation for him. And he just feels like he's in her space. And she's like, no, but you're not. And he's like, yeah, but I feel bad. I mean, if you're sleeping in your car, clearly that's a problem. That's not going to work. And she's like rubbing his back and everything. And she's like, Jack. I mean, they're almost laughing about it because it is funny. I mean, it is funny. And she's like, look, what's normal is when you live with someone, there's give and take. And he's like, okay, fine. And he's like, but next time, wake me up. If I'm snoring, just wake me up. She's like, fine. So now because they didn't have any like ground rules or
that's true.
They didn't talk about. They just kind of like, I mean, everything happened so fast, and he just, can I stay here? And yes, and yay, I'm so happy, without thinking through. Well, are you a light sleeper? Are you a heavy sleeper? Do you bounce around? Do you snore? Do you get up early? Are you a night person? Like, they didn't discuss anything.
Yeah, as we have a saying back home, come see me, come live with me is two different things.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, for sure. So they have a lot to figure out, clearly.
Yep.
So she's very cute, and she's like, but you should know that when it comes to you, I don't care about personal space. And she puts her arms around him, and she gets really, really close, and he's like, really? And she's like, uh-huh. And he's like now? And then he's like practically jumping on top of her. They're cute. It's like, okay, that's fine. But they're awake now, so it's not a problem.
Probably so.
So now we're at Doc's, and he has finally able to get a hold of
Hope.
Thank you. I just totally went blank on her name.
Oh, finally, I know.
Brain freeze. Doc finally got a hold of Hope, and they're doing everything by Zoom call, which unfortunately, because of the spotty reception, both in Virgin River and after a hurricane, it's as good as it's gonna be.
Yeah.
And he's just happy that she's there. They're okay. He knows where she is. They're all in one piece. Like everybody seems to be all right. And, he's checking in on her aunt and everything. And the hurricane, came through. And I guess what happened was they tried to evacuate, and the aunt refused. And
Mm-hmm.
then the neighbor came by, helped them out. They had to push her in a wheelchair at like 100-mile-an-hour winds. And then she's freaking out that she forgot some kind of like bird feeder or something, and was telling everybody that she was being kidnapped. So it was a hot mess, but they were able to find safety and shelter, and they were okay. They could ride the storm out, and it wound up being all right. But now there's a lot of debris and things to clean up, and she doesn't feel like at this point, with her aunt being in her 80s, she can't really leave her. So Doc is like, stay as long as you need to stay. I'm just glad that you're okay and I can reach you and I can talk to you. So she's going to stay a little bit longer, just so that she can, help clean up and get everything back to the way it was before the storm. And even Doc offers to come and help, and she's like, no, 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 airports and just the transportation, everything is such a mess that it wouldn't be
Yeah.
worth it. So she's just going to stay a little bit longer. So he just makes her promise that she'll stay out of trouble, stay out of harm's way. If there's another problem, evacuate. And
Yeah.
and before they hang up, she has a request for him. Just a little request. The Virgin River Quarterly needs to go out, and she needs him to do it. Hang on a second.
Yeah.
I have trash people that are freaking so loud.
I can't hear them, so I think only you can hear them.
It's pretty loud. I will probably be able to hear it on here.
Okay. Oh.
Let me see. Yesterday they were cutting a tree down across the street, so I had buzz saws for like 4 hours.
Oh, jeez.
It's like a 60-foot tree,
Wow.
and it's now in chunks across the street.
It makes good fireworks.
I guess.
Fireplace.
Firewood, yeah.
Yeah, firewood. If that's what you got.
I don't know what they're gonna do with it. It's just sitting there. All right, I think maybe they're quiet for a minute. Okay. So Doc is asking for some, Hope is asking Doc for some help with this Virgin River Quarterly. And he was like, oh, yeah, no problem. So how many are there? How many have to go out? And she's like, 3,982. And he literally bursts out laughing. And he's like, are you kidding me? And she was like, well, yeah, and they need to be mailed as soon as possible. And he was like, well, what is the rush? And she's like, well, this is the one where we talk about the lumberjack games. It's coming up, and it's a reminder. And if we don't tell everybody, then people might not come. And it's like a fundraiser, and we do so many things to help people. And he's like, oh, my gosh. He's like, can't you just send a flyer? She's like, no. We help the food bank, and if the whole town shows up, and he's like, I am not equipped to run the lumberjack games if you think that that's going to happen also. And she's like, no, it's fine. I already assigned someone else this year to run it. It's already taken care of. And he's like, oh, thank goodness. Because can you imagine him playing mayor? I mean,
No.
I mean, Hope has a lot of jobs. She wears a lot of hats in that town.
And but you remember,
but it's her thing.
Woman.
It's her thing too.
Yeah, but women are multitaskers.
Yes.
Men are a one task sort of thing unless they're gay.
Yeah.
Most men, and I don't want to categorize all men, but most men can only do one skill at a time. As such.
Right. They prefer. Let's just say they prefer to focus on one thing at a time.
Yeah.
It's just easier for them to do that. Women don't have that luxury because we're constantly doing 100 things at once.
No, we do not have that luxury, unfortunately.
I never can do one thing at a time. So he's still having some connection issues, and he loses the connection. So at least he got to talk to her, make sure she's okay, and get his assignment for the day, for the week, whatever. So now we're at the bar, and Jack is bringing in some glasses that got washed, and Mike gives him a call, and he asks, where's Jimmy? Because Mike's goal right now is to find Jimmy.
Yep.
And he's like, they brought him in this morning and he's in a holding cell. And Jack's like, okay, well, have you questioned him? And he's like, I'm going to be doing it this afternoon. And Jack is like insisting that he's not only there, but a part of it. Like, I want to question him. I want to talk to him. You know, I'm going to look him in the face. I'm going to know if he's lying. And Mike is like, dude, slow your roll. Like, seriously. That's not how it works. Even if he hasn't asked for a lawyer, doesn't matter. You know, Mike is very particular. He's like, I want to do this by the book.
Well, exactly. Jack is working on emotion, and
Right.
his friend is working on the fact that he has to do things because if anything goes wrong, then the whole case goes down the drain. So
right.
That's the whole thing.
He wants to do everything by the book, and Jack is like, but I want to get my hands on this guy. This is where sometimes Jack gets impulsive, you know, and he just has to trust that Mike will take care of it. And Mike is like, dude, I got this. Like, I got this. So, and even Jack is like, look, you know I'm right about this. And Mike, since Jack was like their leader in the Marines, like everyone trusted him. Like his instincts were always right. Except for Lonergan, everybody made it out, and they did like a bunch of tours together, and they had a lot of fights they were dealing with, a lot of battle that they were dealing with, and he got them out of there. And so they all trust him, but it's like hard for him maybe to give up some of that, and now he has to trust Mike to do what is right and the right way, so that if it is Jimmy, that they get him and not just mess it up and then they got to let him go. So Jack is like, okay. You know, he kind of takes a deep breath and it's like, fine, I'll let him do it. I don't believe that. I think he's not going to, you know, Jack.
Yep.
He can't not do something, right?
Yep. Can't do anything.
So literally hangs up from Mike, and what does he do? He calls Preacher. And he's like, hey, Preach, I got to run an errand this afternoon. I need you to cover. Call me back. Gee, I wonder where he's going. So, yeah, he's definitely not going to let that one sit. So Mel's on her way into the clinic, and her phone's ringing. A lot of phone calls today. And it's her sister.
And she lives in a lovely place.
Yes. And she's like, I have not been able to reach you. Are you all right? And she's like, I even left a message on the clinic's answering machine because I couldn't reach you. And, of course, Mel has to remind her, apologize, and say, you know, reception out here is less than stellar. You know how it is.
She needs to remember it's Virgin River, and it's a 95% chance of not getting hold of somebody.
Right? Exactly.
It's not a 50% chance. It's about 95%.
Yeah. Internet is a little spotty. So there's a lot of places that, I mean, how many times have they mentioned, oh, so-and-so is here, but there's no cell reception there. So, you know, and, oh, they can't reach anybody because they're over here. Liddy's house. Oh, yeah, there's no cell reception here. So it's very common to not be able to have a conversation. I think they need to put up a few more cell towers, make everybody happy.
Yeah. Yeah.
So while Mel is talking to Joey, she is noticing that something's not right. Joey's not okay. And she's like, Joey, what's going on? Talk to me. And Joey's upset. And she's like, the hearing to finalize my divorce is set. And Mel is like, oh, I'm sorry. She goes, I thought you wanted this. And this is like the perfect line. I mean, this is probably how every woman who's getting a divorce may feel. It's like, I want the divorce. I just don't want to be divorced. Because she's got 3 kids to raise, and now she's going to have to do it basically by herself with a part-time dad and share custody and back and forth. And, I mean, it's a lot.
Yeah, not what any mother wants.
Yeah. And she's like, and the worst part is that she feels like that she's going to be alone the rest of her life. That the Bill, her soon-to-be ex-husband, already has a girlfriend. And Mel's like, well, wait a minute. I thought that this was just like a midlife crisis or something. And Joey's like, yeah, well, he took his midlife crisis to Maui. And Mel is like, how do you know that? Joey's like, well, because there's a million pictures on Instagram, courtesy of Ariel, who was born in 1995 and lists glassblower as a career. And Mel, she's so funny. She's like, for real? She's like, okay, first thing you need to do is get off of Instagram. Like, that should be everyone's advice. If you break up with someone, don't stalk them on Instagram. That's not good for anybody.
Yes.
So funny. She's like, please get off Instagram. She's like, but now he wants this girlfriend to meet the kids. She's like, my kids. And that's a big step because generally, when people are getting divorced and they are dating new people, a lot of times there's sort of like whether that's a spoken rule or an unspoken rule that unless you're really, really serious about this person, don't bring the kids involved. Don't be, revolving door with people you're dating. That's confusing for the children. So I think that, and they haven't been apart they're not even divorced yet. And he's already wanting to introduce his kids. Like, what is wrong with this man?
Yeah. Well, you know what's leading him to that, right?
Mm-hmm.
What's between his legs is excuse the expression.
Yeah.
So
Joey is just like, I don't think I can face him alone in this divorce hearing. And Mel is like, you don't have to. I'm going to come there. I'm going to be with you. And then afterwards, we're going to drink. It's fine. Right. I'll be there to support you. I'll be by your side the entire time. And I mean, they only have each other. So Joey really, really appreciates the support because she really needs it right now. She says she feels like such a wimp. And Mel's like, yeah, but this is a really big change. Change is hard, but this is a big change. And she's like, but you have to do what's best for you and best for the kids.
Yep.
So I guess Bill shows up and he's there to pick up the kids and she has to go.
She is not thrilled about the meeting that it may occur.
Yeah. It sucks. It's a bad situation.
Yes, it is. So, in the meantime, now Mel is going into the office.
Yep. Doc probably just got finished talking to Hope.
Mm-hmm. And so, well, Doc is still at the house, so she's the only person in the clinic at the moment. So she walks into the kitchen and she goes straight for the answering machine because she sees the answering machine blinking. And
her sister left a message, so she wants to hear the message even though she already talked to her. So the message is like, "Hi, Dr. Mullins. This is Julia. She's the headhunter. I know you said not to call this number, but I left a message on your cell and I still haven't heard back. Unfortunately, your 2:00 interview," and Mel, she's like getting ready to make coffee and she like stops in her tracks. She's like, the 2:00 interview has to cancel, but still very interested in the position. And Mel's like, what? She's like, please call me to reschedule and we'll go from there. And Mel is like, what did I just hear? What?
Yeah, what 2:00 appointment? That is not gonna. That's not gonna happen.
So now we're at Jack's bar, and Connie just showed up with Lizzie.
Lizzie in tow.
And the four ladies are at the sewing circle. It looks like they're knitting. Today's a knitting day. We got Liddy and Lily and Muriel and Joellen, and they're just chilling. And Connie walks in. And she's like, well, the bakery truck is being serviced, so Lizzie's joining us today. And Lizzie looks so happy to be joining the ladies. She's given such side eye. Oh, my gosh. It's like if looks could kill, they would have buried Connie in the backyard by now.
Mm-hmm.
And so the ladies are very welcoming. They're like, oh, it's nice to see you, dear. How lovely. Welcome. Yeah. And they're like, do you knit? And she's like, no, and I don't want to learn. Well.
And I love the expressions on the ladies' faces.
I know.
Joellen looks like, ooh, and
Muriel's
then
funny. Her expression's like, tell me how you really feel.
it's
Ugh.
just like, okay.
So,
Oh,
so Connie says to Lizzie, if you can assure me that the rumor that you and Ricky went to a motel is false, then you're free to leave. And Lizzie stands her ground. I'll give her that, man. Girl's got
mhm,
gumption. I told you I was at a friend's house, and she's sticking to it.
that's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
Now,
And as and I'm trying to figure out how somebody found out
I,
because
I still think it's either somebody saw them,
mhm,
or even if Charlie didn't say anything,
probably
we
didn't
don't
say
know
anything.
that his nephew isn't married, said something to his wife. The wife said something to somebody. I mean,
Yeah, that's about
nothing is sacred,
yeah, because I
right?
know it's not Charlie. I know it's
No,
not Charlie.
Charlie's not going to say anything. Charlie doesn't care.
Yeah, I
But
know
other
it's not.
people do.
Yep, apparently so.
So Liddy says to Connie, because in a way she was defending the kids for, being
Mm-hmm.
responsible and Ricky being a good kid. She's like,
Mm-hmm.
Connie, if Lizzie says that she was with a friend, then I believe her. It's like, oh, Liddy, you're so misguided, but it's okay. We still love you. And Connie's funny. She's like, well, I wish I could be so naive. Goodness. So Lizzie
Uh,
excuses herself to the bathroom alone.
mm-hmm.
Connie is just like, oh, she's had it. She goes, that girl.
Well, Connie is, remember, this is the same woman who wanted her to keep,
Oh,
abstain.
yes. Abstinence is the key.
Abs-
Well, she's like,
so
I'm the only person keeping her on the straight and narrow. And everybody's
the
like, oh,
problem is,
Connie, Connie. And then Lily
ex-
reminds her, if you hold on to something too tight, it will fight you and try to get away. So maybe you need to like chill out a little bit.
yeah,
Now,
that's not
just
how Connie works, unfortunately.
no, no. And then Doc shows up and he was like, hi, everybody. And they're talking about how Lily was able to get the phone call from Hope and get the phone to Doc, and so that fortunately she was able to reach someone so that she could let everyone know that she's okay. So he's thanking Lily for being there on the other end of the call. And that, the store made a mess and she's going to stay a little longer, because she's got to help her aunt. So another week or two, no big deal. And then she'll be home. And then he's explains to the ladies, now he's got to figure out how to get the newsletter out all by himself.
Mm,
And and who is just so nice to volunteer her services.
my girl.
Muriel's like, we can help you with that, won't we, girls? Like, she just volunteered all of them. I mean, most of them are like, oh yeah, sure. Like,
Well,
what else are they doing?
she couldn't volunteer just herself.
No,
She
it's got
had
to
to,
look like it's a group effort.
exactly.
And Doc is just like, well, really? And she goes, oh, yeah, then you don't have to do everything yourself. And he's like, oh, it's too much. And, are you sure? And Connie gives Muriel a hug. Oh, we're sure. It's fine. It's totally fine. We'll come to your house. That way you don't have to keep moving things around. We'll come to your house and we'll help you. And he's like so appreciative. He's like, thank you, thank you. And just as they're having that conversation and Doc is heading his way out, Connie spots Lizzie, who sneaks from the bathroom to the kitchen because she wants to see Ricky. And
Mm-hmm.
Connie, look on Connie's face. Not a good one. Not a good one. And so she kind of sneaks up behind Ricky and she calls his name and he kind of jumps and he's like, you haven't returned any of my texts. Like, why are you not talking to me? And then he's like, what are you doing here? And she explains that Connie dragged her to the sewing circle because a bakery truck is being serviced.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, she just wants to like say hi. She just wants to hang out. And he is like, oh, so your friend Parker, is he still in town? Like, he's a little jealous much?
Yeah.
She's like, oh, I get it. That's what's bugging you. He goes, no, it's just kind of weird that this like guy just like drops in without any notice. And she goes, yeah, that's Parker. He's just spontaneous. Mm-hmm. He's like,
Oh,
well, you guys seem pretty tight. And he's like, yeah, well, we went out for a while. And he's like, well, how long is a while? 3 years. 3 years is more than a while. And he's like, seriously? Like, I mean, she's 19. That's a long time when you're that young.
that's right.
And she's like, no, we're just friends now. It's fine. He's like, yeah, but does Parker know that? Because he certainly isn't acting like it. So she's like, do you want to come over? Because Connie's got to pick up Christopher and then help Preacher with dinner, so she won't be home until later. And he was like, I got to study. And she's like, well, you just graduated. What are you studying? Like, seriously. And he's like, well, I have to research which college classes to take. Like, he had to do it that night. And she's like, whatever, if you don't want to hang out. And just as she's trying to walk away, playing hard to get, he reaches out, grabs her hand, and he's like, how about I just swing by after my work shift? And at the same time that they're giving a little smoochy to each other, Connie peeks through the stupid window of the kitchen door, and she does not look like what she sees. She is not happy.
That's an understatement.
So now we're back with Preacher and Jack.
And Jack is doing the inventory.
And he kind of passes it off to Preacher because he's got to go somewhere, remember?
Yes, where he's not supposed to go.
And he asks Preacher how it's going with Christopher. And they kind of talk about, how it's tough being a single parent, single guardian, raising a kid. And Jack is like, oh, God, please don't tell me that raising a kid is harder than it looks. And, Preacher's going to defend the situation by saying, well, my situation is very unique. And he goes, yeah, but there's no way that it's any easier to be raising twin newborns.
Yeah.
And Preacher's like, yeah, I kind of agree with you. And then his phone rings, and because he's in the middle of inventory, he asks Jack to take a peek at it. And it's actually Jamie. And she's probably wondering what is going on because, remember, he was supposed to leave.
Yeah.
And he's supposed to be going to San Francisco.
Oh, yeah.
But then Jack got shot and Christopher showed up and he couldn't go.
Yeah.
So Jack takes a peek to see if it's Christopher or the camp that's calling, and it's actually Jamie. And the message says, hey, stranger, how are things in Redwood City? Interesting. And he's like, Jamie. And Preacher's like, oh. And he goes, so what happened there? And he goes, no, it's not like that. And he kind of like leaves. And Jack's like, yeah, I'm not letting that go. And he goes, I didn't mean anything by it, man. Like, I'm sorry. And he goes, well, actually, and this is where it comes out. Jamie had recommended him for the chef's job through a friend of hers in San Francisco. And he had never told Jack. And Jack is like, and he tells him he accepted. And Jack's like, you're leaving? You accepted it? And he's like, yeah, I did. And he goes, but then Christopher came and you got shot and it kind of changed his plans. And Jack's like, I didn't know that you were unhappy. And that's when Preacher explains, because I don't think he ever gave a reason why he wanted to partner with him at the bar.
Yeah.
And since he said no, Preacher was trying to keep his options open, and then this opportunity presented itself, so he was going to jump on it. But now that things happen the way they did, now he's not going. So he had to turn it
Right.
down. And Jack's like, well, I had no idea that being partners was so important. I mean, he might have looked at it differently. And Preacher's like, yeah, but I'm the one that brought it up. But I think in that headspace, Jack just wasn't even thinking. I mean, all he
Yeah.
was thinking was, hey, it's my friend. He's just trying to help me out. But he actually wanted to be a business partner. And I
Yeah.
think if Jack would have known that, or if they would have talked about it at the time, I think that they'd already be partners. But
Yeah.
it wasn't like fully explained. So Preacher's like, you know what? Don't even worry about your bar, your business, your plans. Don't worry about it. So then Preacher has to hightail it out of there because now he's got to go pick up Christopher. So Jack is kind of like, okay, but I really want to talk to you about this, later. And they agree to have a chat about it later, which is good because I think they'd be
Well,
really good partners.
I think so too. I just think they need to sit down and discuss it.
Definitely. So now we have Brady, and he's walking through the forest with Jeb, who has some information for him. It seems that there's a beetle infestation, and it's about half of the trees are affected, and in a matter of time, the other half are going to get affected. Brady's basically confirming that none of the trees are going to be salvageable if the beetles get to all of them, which is terrible. And there's not a lot you can do. I mean, there's not a lot of options at this point for them. And that's what Jeb is trying to explain. And it turns out that Calvin never paid for proper inspections. You're supposed to do them like, I don't know, every month or every 3 months, whatever it is. He didn't do any. And
Right?
he also wasn't insured. So when he
Does that
dumped
not
this,
surprise me?
yeah, when he dumped this business on Brady, he literally dumped it on him.
Yeah.
And now whatever happens, Brady's on the hook for it, which
Yep.
is really bad for Brady. And Jeb is like, you could try and sell, and Brady's like, yeah, but the problem is if I sell, you have to disclose that there's an infestation. You can't just not say that.
Yep.
So that's the problem. And he goes, and plus he's like, I'm not selling it. I'll figure something out. I just need more time. So Jeb is like, all right, good luck with that, but clock's ticking, so you better figure it out quick. I mean, Brady, it seems like he's trying to go straight. He's just going about it like a really wrong way.
Mm. Well, with Brady, everything is, it's cheap ass in the sense of he doesn't want to work at it. Now, not that he's not working at it now, but he wants a shortcut for everything.
Mm-hmm.
And that, and
Yeah.
that's kind
Always
of
looking for the easy way out.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, definitely.
And we saw what now he sees what looking for the easy way out looks like.
Yeah.
So does not look good. We're at Hope's place, and there's Doc and Muriel, and Doc just cut his finger on. It looks like a
Paper cut. Yeah, it looks like a paper cut. Muriel's
Nurse.
just running to his rescue. Oh, I've got a first aid kit in my purse. It's like, really? Like, it's a paper cut. He didn't cut his finger off. Gosh. She gets a little antiseptic wipe and she puts it on there, and he's like, ow, ow. It's like, really? Really?
You know what they say, doctors make the worst patients.
Well, I think it's funny that she says because she dated in her 20s. She dated an ER doctor, so that qualifies her to doe out first aid.
Girlfriend wants, girlfriend is, she's doing her thing.
It's ridiculous. And Doc is like, when an ER is busy and you don't have enough time, sometimes and you can't just walk away. Because he knew a guy who finished his ER shift with a broken arm. And so she was like, "Oh, okay." So they get a little chuckle out of that, and she puts the Band-Aid on his finger. She's like, "Oh, there you go, sir. Good as new." So now they can get back to work. And just as they're continuing to work, Lily shows up, and she's like, "All right, what needs to get done?" Like, she's ready. And so Doc is like, if you guys can handle this, and he's got to get back to the clinic, and the two of them are going to take care of it. They're going to finish it. And he's so appreciative.
Yes, he is.
And he thanks Muriel for helping him figure out the printer and all the other stuff that she was there for. And Lily's just looking at her like, mm-hmm. She's like, what? And she's like, oh, nothing. Nothing. Like, I'm playing innocent. And Lily's funny. She's just looking at her like, yeah, I know you're up to something.
Wow. Lily has, she's
like her conscience.
Right. But she's like the middle child. Of her group. She tries to keep the peace. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
She's just one of those people who, she doesn't want to fight with anybody. She wants everybody to get along, things like that.
Right.
Anyway.
So Jack tells Ricky that he needs to take 5. And he grabs a plate of food and he goes and he sits across in a booth from Bree, his sister. And it looks like pancakes, coffee, syrup. She's like, if you're trying to butter me up, it's working. And he's like, well, I know your weakness. And she's like, that's good. That tastes homemade. Because Preacher made it, it is. So he grabs some and he starts to dig in too. So now he's going to ask her what's going on because her behavior is just not making a whole lot of sense. Like, this doesn't seem like her. So he's got to ask.
Yep, he does.
And she's like, you want the truth? And he was like, well, yeah, that'd be nice. And she's like, I'm not looking for a new job. And he's like, why not? She's like, well, I don't know if I want to go back to practicing law. And he is just flabbergasted. Stunned. I mean, she's wanted to be a lawyer since she was a kid. And all of a sudden, now she doesn't? Like, something had to happen. And she's like, well, I didn't know what I signed up for. And he's like, what do you mean? And she's like, well, working for a firm who doesn't care what happens to you. And as long as you win your cases and bill your clients a crap load of money. And he's like, oh, man. Because, I mean, as much as she loved being a lawyer and loved the idea of it and loved going to school for it, to find out that her dream is basically shattered, that's sad. That's sad. Yeah. He's like, I wish I could help. Him. That's Jack. Always there to help. And she's like, you are helping me. You're letting me stay here for free.
Yeah.
She's like, the rest, I got to figure it out on my own. And he's like, spoken like a true Sheridan, independent to the bitter end. Because that's apparently how they all are.
Apparently so.
And I love this. She's like, speaking of bitter, how's Charmaine? Best line. Best line. And Jack just chuckles because he's like, oh, that was a good one. Like, you could tell, look on his face. He's like, oh, that was a really good one. And he's like, well, I get the feeling that her and Todd are going to limit my time with the babies. And she's like, well, what makes you think that? And he's like, well, she came by here and she said I don't have to worry about housing, that I could visit whenever I wanted, which clearly does not sit well. And she's like, Bree's like, no. As a lawyer, speaking like a lawyer, she's like, you can't not let that stand. Like, custody is all about precedent. Like, there's rules for that. And Jack is like, well, I've done some of my own research and I'm thinking about hiring a lawyer. And Bree offers to talk to someone that she knows that owes her a favor that's nearby. And Jack appreciates that because he can't go into any meeting with Charmaine and her fancy new husband because they're going to have a crap ton of lawyers and it's just going to be him. There's no way.
Yeah.
So
he's got to have somebody on his side.
Exactly. Somebody fighting for him.
Yep.
Not fighting against him. So, and then Bree is so cute. She's like, by the way, I am really happy that you and Mel are dating. And he's like, oh, are you? And she goes, yeah, but she's way out of your league, right? And she always just digs, just gives him the digs. He's like,
And welcome to having a
hey,
sibling.
right?
Welcome to having a sibling.
She's like, I'm just kidding, but seriously, don't mess that up. And he's like, I'm not trying to. And you, wait, what do you mean, trying? And then he tells her, because apparently they're very close and they tell each other everything. He's like, the second night of living together, I found her sleeping in her car. And Bree is like, oh no, are you serious? She goes, well, I have heard you snore, so I don't really blame her. He's like, hey, it's not something I can control.
You
I
can.
mean, and she's like, yeah, we all know how good you are with things you can't control. And then a little bit of reality for him. Look, Mel loves you. You don't pretend to be somebody that you're not. And in the dating world,
True.
that's pretty hard to find. So Jack is like, well, it might not be enough. She's like, nope, you're overthinking it. Just get out of your own way and you might be fine. They're just chilling together. So now we're at camp, and Preacher is there to pick up Christopher. And Christopher is leaving early, and he says he doesn't feel good. And Preacher's like, oh, you got a stomach ache? And he's like, my chest hurts and I'm cold, and he's coughing. And Preacher's like, okay. Well, if you're really sick, we should probably have Doc check you out. So we're going to drive to the clinic. And Christopher's like, okay. And Preacher's like, just to be clear, we're going to go to the clinic and you're going to see Doc and he's going to check you out, thinking he's going to call his bluff. And Christopher's like, no, that's fine. Okay. So we're back at the clinic, and Doc just walked into his office and he finds Tara, Chloe's big sister and Lily's daughter, sitting on the other side of the desk. And she's like, I don't have an appointment, but Mel said you were coming in soon and I could wait. And he was like, okay, well, what can I do for you? And he's like, coincidentally, I just saw your mom over at Hope's. And she's like, oh, well, that's what I came to talk to you about. She goes, my mom has not been herself lately. And he's like, oh, really? How so? And she's like, well, she's sleeping like 12 hours a day and then still says she's tired. He's like, well, have her come in. I'll do a workup. And she's like, no, that's the thing. She's refusing to see any doctors.
We know how Lily is when she's got her mind set on something.
And so then he's like, well, how are you? And she's like, I'm fine. I'm just worried about her. So Doc is like, all right, well, I'll call your mom and I'll try to convince her to come in. Tara's like, just don't let her know that I came to see you about it. Like, you have to pretend it comes from you. You know how private she is. And Doc is like, well, let me see what I can do. Let me see if I can figure it out. And in the meantime, just keep an eye on her and, maybe she'll be fine. Mel is putting some files away and Doc is grabbing a clipboard and he walks over to Mel and she's like, how are you doing? And he's like, oh, Hope had this project she needed me to finish. And she's like, uh-huh, I heard. And she's like, anything else you want to report? And he's like, And Mel's like, yeah, well, your 2:00 interview canceled. Waiting for a reaction. And she's like, the message is still on the answering machine if you want to hear it for yourself. Like, she's just standing there all smug. Like, what are you not telling me? What are you not telling me?
And Mel does not like people keeping secrets.
And he's like, okay, well, thanks for letting me know. And she's like, that's it? Really? Like, she will not let dog with a bone. You're not going to explain what's happening? And he's like, I wasn't planning on it. And she's like, okay, are you hiring someone new? Like, okay, fine. I tried to be subtle. You're not picking up what I'm putting down, so I'm just going to say it. And then the door opens, and he's like, well, it's not concerning you. And then Preacher and Christopher walk in, and Christopher does not look good.
No,
and Preacher's like, yeah, it just started when we pulled up, and he said he was cold and his chest hurt, and so something's not right. And they're like, okay, well, let's check him out. So Doc takes Christopher in the back, and Preacher sort of confesses to Mel that he thinks that maybe what might be going on is Christopher's trying to get out of going to camp. And Mel's like, it could be a lot of things. It could be that. It could be anxiety. It could be 100 things. Let Doc check him out. We'll see what's going on. And Preacher's like, at his age? And he's like, yeah. So Mel's like, don't worry. We're going to figure it out. And then Doc calls him in there. So he's got to go in there. And all of a sudden, now he's hypoxic, which means he's not getting enough oxygen. So
Mhm.
somehow or another, whatever's going on is causing his oxygen levels to drop. So they get some oxygen for him. And so they're having him to take some deep breaths. And Preacher's on the side being encouraging. And then Doc asks him, did you go in the pool today? And possibly did some water go down the wrong way? And he's shaking his head yes. And so all of a sudden his throat starts to like tighten.
Seizes
Yeah,
up.
where he can't breathe. And Doc gets behind him by his head and sort of tilts it in a certain way that opens up his airway, at the same time that Mel's explaining that there's stress on his lungs and it's causing his vocal cords to spasm, which blocks his airway. And so this procedure that Doc is doing by straightening his neck a certain way, it allows his vocal cords to calm down and everything to calm down so that he can breathe.
Yeah. And this is what they call dry drowning.
Yeah.
It's, and it happens to more people than you think.
Yeah.
That's why you have to be careful with your children taking
Yeah. Especially
like
around water anyway. You should always be extra careful.
Yeah.
So Mel looks at Preacher and kind of gives him a reassuring nod, like he's going to be okay. It's all right. He's going to be okay, because he's looking like he's going to freak out.
Yep. Because it's not his kid, and the last thing he wants is something to happen to him while Paige is away.
Exactly.
So
we're at the Humboldt police station, and Jimmy was just brought there from wherever it was he was found. And Mike is there. Mike is he brings him in and he attaches his handcuffs to the bench he's sitting on so he can't get very far, which I think is funny. And then Jimmy's like, hey, you want to grab me a Coke from the kitchen first? And he's probably like, why would I do that? Like, I'm trying to get information out of this guy, but still. And he goes, can you get me a soda? You know, otherwise I might be too parched to speak clearly. You know what I mean? It's like, really? So Mike goes to get him a soda. And at the same time, we see Jack in the parking lot, down in probably his 5th cup of coffee, and sitting there wondering if he should get out of the car and go in and try and talk to Jimmy, which he gets out of the car and he goes
which was the first of many mistakes we're about to encounter.
And as he's walking in and walking by, he sees Jimmy in the hallway chained to the bench. And Jimmy taunts him. He's like, hey there, look who's out and walking around. Because he thinks he shot him.
Yep.
And he's like, lucky.
Yeah.
And Jimmy's like, yeah, I guess that nurse of yours has pretty good set of hands on her. It's like, oh, you're getting real close to that line there, sir. And Jack says, well, I'm just lucky that you're such a lousy shot, assuming that he's the one that shot him. And Jimmy's like, if I'd have pulled the trigger, you'd be dead. So, and Jack is like, those are some pretty big words to be coming from you. You're chained to a bench. Like, I don't think you got a lot of room to talk. And Jimmy's like, yeah, doesn't matter. Who cares? Because they can't hold him. He's like, they can't hold me? If they had some evidence, which they don't seem to have, they'd have to charge me to hold me, and we all know they don't. Jimmy's like, yep, I got some time on my hands now.
Yes, what they need.
And he's like, oh, well, you know, with being unemployed and all, that's what Jack's telling Jimmy. Well, it's all right. I wouldn't worry about it. Sure, you can find a job in prison. So he's poking the bear, Jimmy being the bear, and now Jimmy's gonna come back on him. He goes, hey, G.I. Joe, which pisses him off to no end, you can tell. And he's like, you know, Calvin knows you're responsible for that raid, don't you? And Jack's probably like, I don't even care. Well, when Calvin finally takes you out, you know, I'll be more than happy to take care of your girlfriend.
Oh, that was the mistake he made.
he crossed the line right there. Like he was tap dancing on the line up to that point,
Mm-hmm.
and then he just kicked the line.
Yep.
And
Like,
Jack
Jack rushes it. I mean, Jack, it's not like Jack walked over there. I mean,
no,
he ran
he
like,
goaded him, and yeah,
yeah,
fast.
yeah,
He was
yeah,
on him. Woo,
like
he was on
white
him
on rice,
fast.
honey.
Yep, he was
Like
on him
white on rice,
fast.
bro. That is where
And
things
the
got it.
second that happens, Mike comes out and a cop is there and they separate him. And Jimmy just sits in his little bench and he's chuckling because he
Yeah.
thinks this is all funny. And Mike is like, Jack, what are you doing?
First of all, what is he doing there?
Right?
He's not
He
supposed
already
to
knows
be
that.
there.
And he's like, but
Mhm.
he threatened Mel. And he goes, dude, you are not supposed to be here. He goes, what? You want me to sit at home and wait for the shooter to turn himself in? And he's like, look, right now, Jimmy doesn't even have an alibi. And there's nothing tying him to it. And he goes, yeah, but how many times does he have to threaten to kill me for somebody to think he might actually do it? And Mike is like, it's not enough for a conviction. You got to let me do my job. You know, I got to cross-reference the law enforcement agencies around town.
Gotta follow the book.
Right.
Gotta follow it by the book, which is
It's
hard for Jack because
got
basically
to be by
Jack
the
just
book.
wants him behind bars.
Well, and unfortunately, you know, in these small towns, everything's not on computer. A lot of it is paper files and notes in folders. And so it's going to take a minute for Mike to check all these police stations in all these local towns to track down any information that might be out there that would either help Jimmy or hurt Jimmy. We don't know until he finds out whatever there is to find out.
Yeah.
And he tells Jack to go home and try to calm down. Like, that's the worst thing you tell someone who's that upset. So he's telling him to go home. Like, really? Jack is just like, I will calm down when whoever tried to kill me is behind bars. And he finally leaves. I mean, Mike's doing the best he can. This isn't even his jurisdiction. Like, they're giving him privileges because he's an LA detective. But this is not, he's not hired. He doesn't work there.
Nope, he does not.
So we're back at Doc's, and it looks like Lily and Muriel are working through it. She's like, how many do we have? And she's like, 2,903. And Lily's like, okay. She goes, oh, please, my math isn't that strong. But that leaves, it's basically almost 1,100 left. And Lily's like, unfortunately, I can't stay much longer because I got to go home and feed Chloe. And Muriel's like, oh, by all means, you can go. I can do the rest. She's like, but that's going to take you all. Oh, it's for a good cause. I don't mind. It's fine. And Lily's like, mm-hmm. And then this is where she's trying to be a friend, little heart to heart. She's like, look, I know we can't help who we love. So I say this with all the kindness in the world. She's like, I think you're barking up the wrong tree. And Mira's like, what do you mean? And she's like, look, I've known Doc and Hope for nearly 20 years. And they've had plenty of ups and downs, but they've never left each other's side. She's like, do you think I'm trying to steal Doc away from Hope? Yeah. Just saying. Yeah, so does everybody else. She's like, listen, I know that everyone thinks I'm on the hunt. And this is where you see a little insight into Muriel.
Yeah.
This is one of the many ways that they give a lot of texture to the characters and a lot of backstory and a lot of just gives you a better perspective of each person. So this is a little bit for Muriel. And she explains, she's like, look, I know that everybody's like, oh, don't leave your husband alone with Muriel. She goes, but I'm not a homewrecker. She's like, it wasn't that long ago that you made it quite clear about Doc. And she's like, look, I realize what's going on. She goes, I know. Doc is spoken for. I get it. And she's like, Lily says to her, well, why pay him so much attention? And Mira's like, look, And this is where this is the truth. This is what it boils down to. She's like, I don't have a lot of good friends here. And Doc and I have a lot in common. We both like classical music, good wine, board games. And she says, I just simply enjoy his company. And Lily explains, she's like, well, this isn't just about Hope, okay? She goes, I want what's best for you too. Like, I think for a minute, Muriel sort of thinks everybody's against her and is only thinking about Hope. So I'm really, really glad that Lily was able to explain that, look, you're my friend too, and I care about you. I don't want to see Hope get hurt because of what you're doing. I don't want to see you get hurt because you think you might have a chance with him.
Yep.
Like, I want you to go into this with your eyes open and no ulterior motives, and then we can all be friends. So I think Lily's just looking out for her. She's like, look, as long as you realize that Doc is completely devoted to Hope, you'll spare yourself a whole lot of heartache. And Muriel's like, yep, I got it. I understand. Now, she's saying that because she's looking for either Hope to screw up again and do something that pisses Doc off, and then he runs screaming for the hills, right into the arms of Muriel, who will be waiting for him.
Yes, she
it's
will.
Like, oh my gosh, Muriel, really? But at least he's being honest.
You remember when Hope and Muriel had that confrontation, confrontation thing. So Muriel knows that Hope has a tendency of mucking things up.
Well, she even said, I'll be here when you mess it up again. She told her flat out. So in her mind, something's going to happen. And she'll just be there waiting.
Yep. So it's just a matter of time.
So Jack is trying to pull himself together after his little altercation with Jimmy at the police station. So he's just sitting by the river trying to find his zen because he clearly needed some. And his phone rings. And immediately, because the look on his face and the smile, he found his zen, and her name is Mel. And he's like, hey, are you on your way home? And she's like, no, I'm stuck at work. It might be a couple more hours. And he's like, oh, but you got to be exhausted. And she's like, yeah, a little. And he's like, well, you sure you don't want me to stay at the B&B? Even if it's for one night, because I don't want you to get run down. Like, one night of lacking sleep. I mean, wait till they have kids and they don't sleep at all. Like, geez. And she's like, what? She goes, I work the graveyard shift at the hospital. That would be the LA, like, level 1 trauma center. She's like, I did that for 2 years. She goes, this is nothing. And imagine how many cases they saw in a day. I mean, what kind of stuff is she? Has she even seen very many patients today?
No,
not likely.
I think she's seen one.
Not likely. She would have run through 20 by now. So she's doing just fine. And he's like, so sweet. Are you sure? Are you sure you're not going to be too tired? And she's like, I'm fine. She's like, I am looking forward to coming home and you being there. And he's like, I love you. And she's like, I love you too. It's like smoochies. So cute. So she goes back inside, and Preacher's kind of, again, everyone's trying to find their zen today. He's still freaked out by what happened with Christopher because he originally thought he was kidding. And then it's a real medical emergency, and you can see that all over his face. He's like, how you doing? He goes, Doc's in with him, and I needed a minute. Yeah. And Mel's like, yeah, I get it. And Preacher's like, God, it's crazy. And Doc is like, his breathing is stabilized. He's good. He fell asleep, so we're going to leave him there for a minute. I have the heart to wake him up. And Preacher's like, I don't understand what happened. And this is where Mel explains that it looks like he suffered from respiratory dysfunction, and it was related to getting a small amount of water in his lungs when he got dunked by the boys. Like you said, dry drowning. And Doc said, he told me that he was playing with some older boys and they were pushing him under. And that's what happened. That's how it happened. Yeah. And Preacher's like feeling like a failure. Like, he didn't do his job. His job is to protect Christopher and make sure nothing happens to him, and this happened to him, and it's his fault, and he's just like kind of spinning out a little bit.
Yeah, he's having a freak out moment.
A little bit, yeah. And Doc's like, no, you were smart to bring him in before any damage was done. He's going to be just fine. And then they say, Doc is like, kids, though, they're sometimes hard to read. Yeah, sometimes they're bluffing and sometimes they're telling the truth. And, sometimes you just got to go with your gut. And he did. And so fortunately, everything worked out okay. And this is when Preacher is just feeling like a failure. And he's like, well, you know what? Maybe he should be with somebody else. Somebody who's better at this. And Mel's like, no, Christopher loves you. He trusts you. That's what matters. And Doc's like, listen to Mel. She knows what she's talking about. He's fine with you. You're doing a great job. Don't beat yourself up. Everything is going to be okay. He's going to be fine. And so he's just appreciative that they were there when he needed help. And he's like, I don't know what I would have done if something would have happened to him. And they're like, nope, he's going to be fine. And he's like, when you go talk to him, you just got to reassure him that everything is okay and he's going to be okay. Because that's what he needs. That's what he needs right now. It's like, you can freak out all you want. Just don't show that to him. You got to put your game face on there, Preacher. Go in there and just be strong and reassure him, and it'll be okay.
It's hard being a parent,
yeah.
Especially if you didn't expect to be a parent.
Yeah, this was a surprise parent. Spontaneous parent, I guess. Mm-hmm. So Mel follows Doc into the kitchen, and he's just basically given her the rundown that his breathing is strong and there's no sign of lung issue and he's going to be just fine. And she's like, that's good. And he's like, I think we should monitor him for like the next couple of hours. And, we're just going to make sure that he's okay before we send him home. Mel's like, well, I can stay if you want to go home. And Doc's like, no, I appreciate that. And he's like, you want some coffee? And she's starting to get a little pissy with him. Because she's like,
she's not getting the answer she's looking for.
Right. And he's dodging her left and right. So he's like, you want some coffee? She's like, no, thanks. And he's just like nonchalant. She's like, if you're thinking of hiring someone else, don't you think I should be in the loop?
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, I'm not adding anyone to the staff. And she's like, okay, let's do the math. There's you and there's me. And you're not adding anyone. She's like, okay, well, what does that mean? And he's like, look, I don't have the energy to get into this with you right now. But just know that it's not your position that I'm looking to fill. And she's looking at him like almost sad, like, okay, wait, let me think about this. There's only two people that work here. There's you and there's me. And if you're not replacing me, then you're... And it's like the realization.
Yeah, like, where the hell are you going?
Right. Like, did I miss something? What's going on?
Yes, she did. She missed a whole lot.
Yeah. So it's later on in the evening. And it seems that Brady and Bree, they want to enjoy a little more time together. It seems like they plan to meet at this other bar. If he's going to hang out with Bree, he does not want to do it in front of Jack.
Oh, hell no.
So they got to find somewhere else to hang out. So she walks in. She orders 2 beers. She walks over to where Brady is sitting waiting for her. And he's already probably halfway through a beer. And he's like, hey, I didn't think you were coming. And she's like, well, I needed to help Jack with something. He's like, I'll get the next one. She's like, no, don't worry about it. I could buy my own drinks. She's a tough cookie. She is tough.
Well, she's a lawyer.
I mean, she's clearly got some baggage, which we don't know about. And that has probably hardened her exterior a little bit.
Could be.
And he's like, a guy can buy you a drink without any strings attached. She's like, they can, but this way, I buy my own drinks. There's no confusion. He's like, okay, have it your way. She's like, oh, that was easy. And he's like, she's like, I thought there'd be a little more pushback. And he's like,
Mhm.
I'm not even gonna, I'm not even gonna go there with you. Like, it's all good. He goes, don't sweat the small stuff. And she goes, okay, well, what about the big stuff? And he's like, well, let's say I won't start a fight, but I'm not afraid to finish it. So that's very intriguing to her. She's like, oh, I like that. Feisty. So I always say the two of them, feisty. You
Yeah.
know? She's a little firecracker, so you got to look out for her.
Oh, hell yes.
Right? And so they clink their beers, and she's like, here is to not taking any crap. Love that toast. And he's like, yep,
Yeah.
not taking any crap.
She's just like, okie dokie.
So Ricky is home, and there's a knock at the door, and it's Lizzie. How nice of her to stop by, and why does she have a suitcase? And she's like,
There is the $1,000,000 question.
Connie saw us together at the bar and freaked out on me again. And
where does she?
Ricky's like, and Liddy's like, oh, hi, are you going somewhere, dear? She's like, actually, I was hoping I could stay with you guys for a while. And Liddy's like, oh, really? Oh, my. Oh, so funny.
Yes. Liddy is just not. She's
No.
just not.
She is not. She was not ready for this.
Nope, she was not.
It was all, Ricky was quiet and calm and serene just a few short months ago. Now Lizzie's in his life and turned it all upside down.
Girl, it's a child is like a walking hurricane.
Yep. So Mel gets home. Remember, she got home late because she had stuff to deal with.
Mm-hmm.
And she hangs up her purse. And she's, in their place that you can literally see the entire place from the front door. She's looking around and she doesn't see Jack. And when you can't find someone in the place, what's the first place you check? The bathroom. The only door in the place. It's so funny. It's like, well, they're not hiding under the bed. They're not in the refrigerator. So, I don't see a closet. I'm sure there's a closet. I just don't know where it is, and I've never seen it. I don't think they'd be hiding in the closet. But if you can't see them when you walk in.
She's got a lot of drawers.
Yeah.
I don't know about stuff to hang up.
Yeah,
and
I don't
I'm
know.
sure there is, but it's just so weird,
So she goes over to the bathroom, and she sees the door shut, and she's like, Jack, I'm home. And he opens the door, but only just enough to peek out. And he's like, hello there. Like, he's so weird. Like, he acts so bizarro. He's like, hello there. And she's like, what are you doing in there? And he's like, I'm just trying to figure something out. And she's like, okay. He's like, well, what flower do you prefer? Rose or jasmine? And she's like, well, I slightly prefer jasmine. And he's like, that's not what I thought you were going to say. Hold on just a minute. And he shuts the door. And she's like, okay. And she's like, should I start dinner while you're doing whatever it is you're doing? And he's like, nope, I got it handled. Just a second. So she's standing out there like curious. And then he opens the door and she's like, oh, you drew me a bath. And it's got the candles and the soaps and there's bubbles and it's all done up for her. And he's like, well, you sounded like you had a long day. And she's like, you are the sweetest, most thoughtful man. And he's like, well, you're a remarkable woman. Apparently it's compliment day.
Apparently so.
Yeah. And we have a little smoochy smooch. And then she's like, are you going to get in with me? And he's like, no, I got a few details to attend to. And she's like, details? And he goes, yep, the only thing that you need to focus on is you. So get in there. She's like, all right. So he's checking the oven because he's cooking something for dinner. I'm surprised she couldn't smell it. And then the phone rings and he grabs the phone and he was like, okay, what's the word? So clearly he's probably talking to Mike. And he goes, we had to let Jimmy walk. And he goes, damn it, why? And he goes, well, he got himself an alibi. And Jack's like, yeah, he probably paid somebody for that. Because, he could do that.
Mm-hmm.
And Mike is like, no, because it's the Trinity County Sheriff's Office. I don't think they would lie. He's like, Jimmy was in their drunk tank the night that you got shot. So that's a pretty good alibi. And
Yep, I would say so.
he's like, you're just finding this out now? Like, it seems like something that would be pretty obvious, right? That
Yeah.
they would know that. And Mike is like, yeah, but it's like I told you, these small towns, they're not digitized. Their paperwork is under paper system. And, the clerk was out sick and they're just finally getting back to him. And so, like, so you're sure it's not Jimmy? And Mike is like, yeah, I'm sorry, man. I thought he was our guy. So it's like back to the drawing board. I mean, what else are they going to do? They just, so Jack's like, well, what now? And Mike's like, we keep looking. He's a detective. You go back, you re-interview, you re-canvas, you check all your details. You just start over. You got to go back and you got to figure it out. And so Jack is like, all right, Mike's like, if I hear anything, I'll let you know. And Jack's is pissed, but he's like, I got to go because I got plans. So
yeah, Jack is not a happy camper at this present moment.
So now we are at Doc's place and Hope's place, and he's out on that back patio, and he's got his little tablet with his little Zoom call with Hope. Now, did I tell you how they filmed that?
No.
So while Annette O'Toole was home because this was done during COVID, and because her mom is older, she didn't want to leave her alone, and so she was not able to travel for this season. So she was not in Vancouver when they were filming, but they didn't want to write her out, but they still wanted to incorporate her storyline. So they had to kind of rearrange things and kind of change her character so that she could still be in it but not be in it. And so what they did was they actually did film Zoom calls, and they had, I guess, the director, producer, whoever, they got like the Zoom and they looked around to see what would be the perfect spot for her to sit in front of to make it the right, because it's all about how does it look, because they're not on set. If they were on set, they would have built something as a background for her Zoom calls.
Right.
But she's home. She lives in LA. She's home. And so they had to use what she has available. So they found a spot that every phone call, I think they did one or two different spots, but she sat in front of the certain window and they did stuff in the background. Like, I guess there was, in one of them, when the first phone call, I guess there was this weird tree outside, and they're like, oh, that's perfect because it looks like maybe that's a storm damage kind of a tree, the way that the tree was. So they actually had to determine the background that was what they didn't want just a white wall, because sometimes that just looks boring and weird. So they had to like find the right location in order for her to do the Zoom calls so that it would look as realistic as if this was all planned. We wanted to do this from the beginning. So I thought it was really interesting that they found a way to incorporate.
It's amazing how things worked out.
Oh, yeah. So she was able to be a part of the entire season until she was ready to come back, which was nice. So Doc is explaining to Hope about his macular degeneration and talking about like what his options are and what they're going to do. And one doctor has a treatment plan. And so she's like, well, why don't you get a second opinion? He's like, well, we did. The other one is a second opinion. And, the treatment is basically they inject into your eye, and that doesn't cure it, but it stops it from getting worse. And so that's like the best course of action. That's like, and it's usually about 90% effective. And so the side effects are not great. And so he's explaining to her that infection or retinal detachment or stroke, and Hope just like freaks out. She's like, stroke? That's not a side effect. That's like a death sentence. And Doc is like, yeah, and she's like, get a second opinion. He's like, no, this other guy is the second opinion. She's like, then get a third. There's got to be something better. And he's like, look, it's not going to make a difference. He has this, and he has to deal with it. And if he sits around and doesn't do anything about it, then it's going to get worse and he could literally be blind. So then she's upset that she left town. Like, she's feeling guilty that she should have been there, that, she shouldn't have left until things got under control. But I mean, then something could have happened to her aunt, then she couldn't have forgiven herself for that either. So he's just worried about her, and he's like, look, here's the deal. We're going to deal with it. We're going to do what we have to do. But for now, I don't want you to tell anybody about this. That's a tough thing for Hope.
Yeah.
To not say anything. And he's like, do you hear me? And she's like, oh, and you could look at her face. It's like, yes, I hear you.
I don't want to hear you, but I hear you.
Yes. It's like, oh my gosh, I can't tell a secret. So Mel comes out of the bathroom. She's all dressed. Her hair is up. And nice music in the background. And she's looking around for Jack, and she was already in the bathroom. And if she doesn't see him in the room, then he has to be somewhere. So there's a note.
As we say, the room is very limited in space.
Yeah, he's not hiding, he's not hiding under the bed or anything. So he leaves a note on the kitchen counter that says, I'm outside. So she's like, what is he doing? So she heads outside, and he's got this full-on setup. He's got
it's beautiful.
Oh, it's unbelievable. He's got food underneath these covers, and he's got candles, lots of candles, and he's pouring champagne and flowers on this beautiful table with like linen tablecloth or linen napkins and everything. And it's dinner, and he looks very nice. He's all a little bit dressed up.
Yep, he looks dapper.
Mm-hmm. And she's like, what's all this? And he's like, champagne. And he hands her a glass, and she's like, oh my gosh. And what he did was, the tree that's right out front, he put a swing on it with a red seat. Do you remember way back when they were at Lily's and they took a walk, and she said this was a swing that my sister and I had when we were young? And she is just blown away. She's like, it's exactly like the one that it's exactly like the one Joey and I had growing up. Yeah. And she's like, I can't believe you remembered that. And he just looks so cute he's just smiling. Like, how could I forget that?
And the dimples are showing.
You can go swimming in those dimples. They're so big. And he just gets real close to her, and he's like, after the fire, you were totally there for me. This is my way of saying I love you and I appreciate you. Oh. And she's like, deep breath. Her eyes are all misty. I mean, this is somebody who has just, the universe has just beat her up for like the last 10 years. And to have somebody care that much about the little details, it's very overwhelming to her. And she's like, she puts her arms around him, and she's like, gives us a little kiss. And she's like, you make me so happy. And then this is his always one more thing with Jack. Remember last time when he was preparing her birthday, and he was telling her, I have one more thing, meet me at my house in an hour? Well, here's the second time he does this. He does this a few times. It's like he can't just have dinner. He can't just have a swing. He can't just have champagne and candles.
That's not his thing.
He goes all out. He goes, I have one more surprise. And he grabs her by the hand, and he pulls her toward the dock, and they're walking down the path, and the path is lined with tea lights. Mm-hmm. And then there's tea lights surrounding the water. And there's a little boat, a little tiny rowboat at the end of the dock. And she's like, how in the world? He goes, well, I had a little help. Remember Bree said she was helping with Jack with something? Well, she goes, Bree actually helped me with the tea lights. And she's like, that was her idea? Oh my gosh. Mm-hmm. She's so sweet.
She is.
She's like, I am blown away. And he just like, that's what he wanted to hear. Like, that made his whole month. He's like, that's the reaction I was looking for. And they just give each other the cutest little smiles. It's adorable. And so he gets in the boat. It's like, very carefully. Don't fall. Don't make any sudden movements. Helps her into the boat. And they both sit down. This is a very tiny rowboat. And then she pushes off. She's holding the champagne and she pushes off. And he's rowing them. And I think this is the actual place where, because it would be hard to like do this on a set. I mean, I know there's places where there's water, but all the trees and everything. I think this is the actual lake that's by the cabin. So I think this is a location shot. And so
if it is, it's gorgeous.
Yes, it is. So they row to the middle and he's like, so what do you think? And she's like, it's beautiful. And she leans over to give him a kiss. And every time I see this, I think of The Little Mermaid and the song Kiss the Girl. Because that's what it looks like.
Yes, it does.
It's just like that.
La, 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 la.
Yeah, I think I might make a little, when I post this episode, I think I might do a little thing that shows both scenes together. Because I think that would be cute. I just think that would be cute. But yeah, if he wants to sweep her off her feet, and remember how this is, what is this episode called? Take My Breath Away?
Take My Breath Away, yeah.
I think he took her breath away. I think he blew her away with all of this. Like every time she walked out, and then she sees something else. Like, I think he's successful. Yep. I'm going to say that. And that does look like the original because there's the cabin, there's the dock, and in the background is that other where they had sushi for her birthday. So that is the actual lake. So that is a location shot. Can you imagine how much time it took to like get all those tea lights and the weather? And then the moon is probably not the moon. I'll bet you the moon is a light because, you know.
Yeah.
Because that's movie magic, TV magic. Beautiful,
So
though.
cool.
I mean, that's such a beautiful scene. It's this
Definitely
place.
is.
This place. Amazing. See, even bugs. I saw bugs. So there you go.
Yeah.
All right. So we're back at the other bar because even if Jack isn't at Jack's bar, Bree is still not going to hang out with Brady there. There's just no way she's going to risk it or somebody telling on her.
Yeah, that's more trouble than
Right.
it's
More
worth.
trouble than she wants.
Yeah.
And so they're playing darts. And she is very impressed with his accuracy. She's like, come on, you're cheating. And he's like, how? You watched me throw. She goes, I don't know. You're just cheating. I know you're cheating. So she tries to throw. She goes, okay. And she's like aiming and getting ready. And she throws it and it hits the floor. And she's like, see, that's why I wanted to play pool. Because maybe she sucks at darts, but she can kick his butt in pool.
In pool, yeah.
Right? And he's like, it's okay. And he grabs her by the lapels on her jacket. And he's like, you'll get it. You're holding on too long. And he pulls her like by her lapels to get close to her. And he's like holding her and showing her, sort of demonstrating as he's holding her how to do it. He's like, you throw it. And she goes, oh, come on. Now you're just showing off because he probably got like a bullseye. So they think it's funny. So then this song comes on. And
it's a good song.
It's a good song. It's a very sexy song. And
it's a very sexy song.
It's funny when they were describing this because there's a behind the scenes where they posted it and it shows them practicing this in a like a warehouse. The music is on, they have masks on because it was during COVID, and they were just kind of like practicing what the dance is going to look like. And then below it, they have the actual dance, how it actually was cut and for the show. And they're very similar. They changed a little bit of it, but it is very similar. And they call it the sexy dance.
Which is a sexy dance.
Which is, yeah. So she's
seriously sexy dance.
She's like, let's dance. And she's like, come on. And he was like, And he's like, oh, please, no. And so she pulls him and he just kind of stands off to the side. And then she starts kind of like shaking her booty really slow, because it's the sexy dance.
It's the sexy dance.
And there's like nobody else dancing. I mean, there's a few people in the bar and he's just looking at her kind of smiling like, oh my. Okay. And so he just walks up to her while she's doing this, and he's just holding her, and they dance together very slowly,
And she
just
says,
shaking it. Because it's like, don't put the blame on me, the song.
yeah, yes, it's a good song.
Yeah, it's a good song. And she says, I thought you said you couldn't dance. And he's like, oh, I never said I couldn't. He just didn't want to. So now they're like getting cute with each other. They're having a good time. I mean, they've had a couple beers. They're having a good time. Like, they're not taking each other too seriously. And just as they're having a good time, this girl who's sitting at a bar jumps up when she sees Bree, and she's like, hi, do you remember me? I'm Stella. I used to be Dawn's assistant. And the look on Bree's face is like she just saw a ghost.
Yeah, she literally, like, the color from her drained.
Oh, yeah. And she's like, so she's trying to play it off. She's like, oh, yeah, hey. But you could tell. She's like, oh, my God, please let this be over. Please let this girl go away. Please let her stop talking to me. And the girl's like, oh, my parents live in Clear River. Bree asks, what are you doing here? And she's like, visiting. And so she's looking at Brady and looking back at Bree. And Bree's trying to play it off like, okay, we're cool, we're cool. And the girl says, I swear, this is like fate. Because I wanted to tell you that you were right about... And Bree cuts her off. Because when the girl is saying this, she's very nervous. And almost like as a warning, like you were trying to warn me. And I'm glad I didn't listen. Because she said, I used to be Dawn's assistant, which means she no longer is.
Right.
Interesting. And Bree's like, cuts her off. I'm sorry, gotta go. Literally grabs her stuff and can't get out of there fast enough. And Brady's looking at her like, what just happened?
What the hell just happened?
And even the girl like shrugs her shoulders like, what did I do? And Brady grabs his jacket. He's chasing after her. But by the time he gets outside, she's already got her foot on the gas and she's driving away.
Girlfriend is fast.
She is gone. She is out of there. And he's like, what just happened?
She is fast, ladies and gentlemen.
What just happened? Clearly after their kiss the girl in the boat, now Jack and Mel are in bed and the fireplace is going, which is really nice. That fireplace is amazing. Right in the center of the room is amazing.
Let me tell you.
I love this cabin.
Not only that, but I think the fireplace is what makes the cabin.
It really is.
You know,
it's amazing.
It's just flipping amazing.
Yeah. So they're in bed and he's like, kind of like tickling her arm, sort of like caressing her arm while they're talking. And he's like, you're being awfully quiet. And then she's like, this morning when we were talking about being real with each other. And he's like, uh-huh. And he kisses her shoulder. It's very sweet.
And you can tell there's a buildup in that.
She's like, oh, do I say something? Do I not say something? Like, you can tell she's having a battle in her head. Like, is this the right time? We're supposed to be honest with each other. How honest should I be? Like, there's a lot of dialogue. Women and the what do they call it? The internal monologue and dialogue that goes on in a woman's head. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Can't even. Like, men, you ask them, what are you thinking about when you go, nothing. When I'm sleeping, nothing. There's nothing. It's blank piece of paper.
And the thing is, they're not trying to be difficult.
No.
They are thinking
They're just literally not thinking of anything. And women are like 7,000 things they did, want to do, have to do, need to do, want to do, thinking about doing is all going on in their head.
Yeah.
And
I think once women know that about themselves, it makes their life a lot easier on their men.
Yeah. Men just don't get it. They're like, why? Like, just go to sleep. It's like, no, I can't. My brain cells are having conversations with each other, and I can't sleep until they're done. So, don't know what to tell you.
And that's like 5 minutes before you're supposed to get up and start your day all over again.
Or all night long, even in your sleep. You're still battling those conversations. Good Lord. It's exhausting. It is exhausting being female. I'm sorry, man. You just don't get it.
It is definitely exhausting.
Yeah, they couldn't do it. Anyway, so she is having this internal dialogue, and she says to him, how would you feel? And you can tell this is hard for her to say because she's not like just blurting it out. It's like, about me having a baby. And
And
he
I did
kind
not see
of,
that. I didn't see that coming, let me tell you.
I
I
mean,
did not see that one coming.
I I had a feeling that this would come up. I just didn't think it would come up so soon. And I
Mm,
think the only reason it's so forefront on her brain is because of how many babies that she's dealing with right now. She's got Charmaine randomly pregnant with twins. Like, okay, where did that come from? And then caring for Lily's baby, Chloe.
mm-hmm.
I think, it's like probably when she moved there, she was set and she was okay and she was going to live with the fact that she couldn't have kids.
Right.
But then you put her in these. Now she's a midwife. So delivering babies is one thing, that's a job. But having personal relationships with people with babies is very different. And she's good with separating, there's going to be many instances where no matter what's going on in her own life, she steps up and does her job. No matter what she's going through, she steps up and does her job. And that's one thing. But personal relationships that involve babies, that's a different place. And I feel like her maternal instincts are just, what do they, there's a saying I heard, like my ovaries are screaming, or what is it?
Yes.
Something
Yeah.
like that. Like,
Mm-hmm.
it's like her ovaries are screaming and she
Mm-hmm.
can't, it's so loud that she has to, and because she's so honest. She doesn't hide anything. She says what's on her mind. She's very direct.
Yeah.
And she says to Jack, "What do you think?" And the look on his face is like,
Mm.
uh, fade to black.
Yep.
I mean, this is a guy who, okay, let's say we are 5 months. She's
Yeah.
been there 5 months. They've been together since the shooting. I'm going to say less than 2 months, month and a half, 2 months since the shooting. Now, granted, they have spent clearly a ton of time together.
They have
And
spent almost every day together since she moved there.
right. And so they have developed a friendship, sexual tension, fondness, lust, all that before the I love yous, and now they're together. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, they went through all the stages of relationship. And even though she's been there for, and 5 months ago, let's say 6 months ago, let's go outside of that range. 6 months ago, Jack was a single guy, living life, running a bar,
Mm-hmm.
hooking up with Charmaine once in a while.
Now,
And Mel walks into a bar, like the joke, a girl walks in a bar and changes his entire life. And he
she
went
has.
from he went from single guy hooking up, running a bar, to now he's dating, living with his girlfriend, has his ex hookup, pregnant with twins, burned down his house, and now she wants to have a baby. So he's thinking to himself, okay, I got two on the way, and she wants one. That makes three. I had 0 6 months ago, and now people want me to have three.
Yes,
Like,
so.
huh? What? What? I'm sorry. Can you speak a little louder? I'm a little deaf in that ear. Like, what? Yeah.
Yeah.
Talk about. I mean, like, let's not overwhelm Jack. Mel. I thought we were gonna not overwhelm Jack. Like, honey, girlfriend, you need to calm down. You need to, like, put the baby on the back burner for like just a hot minute. Like, I could see waiting a few months. I mean, it's not like she's old. It's not like her I don't know, her clock is
Well,
ticking or something.
well,
Maybe it is.
I think part of it is this. Remember, she is thinking that because she had so much trouble with her last husband
Yeah.
and her last situation, it will take her longer to get pregnant.
Sure.
So if it takes them a while,
Right.
it but they have to get started because it's going to take a while. So I think that's where
And
she's
see,
coming
he
from.
doesn't know that. So I feel like I get that it's going to take time, but he doesn't know that. All he knows is she can't have kids. So
Mm-hmm.
on one hand, he's thinking, Mel, I already have twins coming. Like, uh, uh another one. Like, can we like get these out of the oven before we start baking some new ones? Like, maybe.
Yeah.
But then he might be thinking, wait a second, hold on, rewind. Didn't you say you can't have kids? So how exactly is that going to work?
Yeah.
So the perplexed look on his face has many facets. I feel like he's got more questions and no answers at all. Like not even some. Like not even a hint of an answer. I
Yeah.
think he's gonna like, how's that gonna happen? And don't you know I already have two? And are you really? We're not married. We literally just started dating. Like we've been together for a month and a half. Like, aren't you moving a little fast there, sister?
Yeah. Basically we just started to connect
Yeah.
physically.
I mean, they've been together a month and a half. Together. A
Yeah.
month and a half. They've had what? This is their third night sleeping at the cabin. Like
Yeah, I would say so.
I think can we marinate this relationship just a little bit longer? Can we just let's get the crock pot out. We're just gonna dump everything in. We're just gonna let it simmer and we're gonna see what's gonna happen. Like what is the rush? I get it. I
Yeah.
get it. The baby is big for her. I get it. I've lived it. I understand.
Mhm.
But dude,
Yeah.
you got to be, I mean, they're in the same book. They're just on different chapters. I feel like he would get there. I think if she would said, at some point, like it's all how you phrase it. Cuz
Yeah.
she's making it sound like let's do this today. Like I want to have a baby. Come on, let's get started right now. Like right now, let's get started trying. Whereas if she would have said, "I would like to have a baby with you. What do you think about that?" Like at some point in our relationship, I want to be with you and I would like to have a baby with you at some point. And it's something that they could talk about. But
Yeah.
this sounds like she's just ready to go, like today. Like if you could like add water and produce a baby, she'd be like, "Yes, order me one of those. Amazon will deliver. Prime 2 days. We got it." Totally. But no, yeah, she's ready now, and he's like, oh, brakes,
Yeah.
push down
Yeah.
hard on the brakes.
Yeah.
So yeah,
It's so.
I guess we'll see that,
Yes.
and we're just gonna go right into like we're gonna finish that conversation on the next episode
Oh yeah.
because
Most
that is not something you skip over. Like I said, we feel like we
definitely.
live every moment of their lives.
And we do.
We do because
And
we are
we do.
literally gonna finish that conversation. Stay tuned. The next episode of Mel wants to have a baby and Jack is having a heart attack. Oh, these crazy kids. What are we going to do with them? What
Not
are
a
we going
whole
to do with them?
not a whole lot, my friend. Not a whole lot.
Anyway. All right. Well, that was fun.
Okay, folks. Au revoir.
Au revoir. Have a lovely day. And we will see you next time for we'll be halfway through. We'll be halfway through after the next one. Season 3. We're getting there. All right, Gigi. Have yourself a good day. And thank you, everyone, for listening. We appreciate all the listeners. And we hope that we're making you laugh. We don't want to make you cry. So I'm not even going to say that. But we hope that, we're entertaining enough to keep you interested and coming back for more episodes because we'll just keep going. All right. Thank you so much.